Hey everybody. I'm live on Facebook and it's Halloween time, so I'm in my spoopy configuration. I don't know. So here's the truth of the matter. I am Lynsey G. I am a writer. I have wrote primarily about the intersection of feminism and pornography for the past decade. It's a thing, whether you are aware of it or not. It's out there. It's a thing. I write about it. I've written for a lot of different places. Most recently, I've been writing for Playboy, Rolling Stone, Men's Health, and Mel Magazine. I also, hang on a second, wrote this book. It's called Watching Porn. Watching Porn and Other Confessions of an Adult Entertainment Journalist. And it is a memoir, sort of. It's really an informative book that I wrote about the adult entertainment industry from an insider's perspective, cleverly disguised as a memoir to make it more relatable for people who aren't nerds about porn like I am. So I am here today to read a chapter from this book. But I'm going to be real with you for a minute. I launched a Kickstarter this week to fund the production and the printing of my graphic novel, Tracy Queen, which is a gigantic, epic sci-fi thing that I created, which is also about feminism and pornography, but from like a fun, sort of different perspective than most of my journalism and memoir writing. So basically, I'm running this Kickstarter and my life is a giant dumpster fire at the moment. I don't know if any of you out there watching this have ever run a Kickstarter, but it is a whole thing. Like, it's a lifestyle. We decided to make our Kickstarter 31 days long, which means we have 1 month literally to convince hopefully as many people as possible that they want to be involved in our sex-positive feminist sci-fi graphic novel, which is kind of a hard sell for a lot of people, because the truth is a lot of people are really, really freaked out by topics of sexuality. So I am devoting at least like 6 hours a day right now to trying to spread the word about this Kickstarter. So whereas I like to have a lot of preparation go into my chapter reading series, which I do live on Facebook every other week, this week I just haven't had as much time to put into it. So apologies in advance for this being a little bit sort of last minute and frantic. I've done the best preparation that I could under the circumstances, but I have not had a whole lot of time. Then it is also Halloween weekend, so everything's been extra crazy for lots of people, I'm assuming. I actually was so exhausted this weekend that I did not go out and do anything for Halloween. I stayed in and watched way too many episodes running of The Haunting of Hill House, which was definitely not the brilliantest idea I've ever had, because last night I woke up in the middle of the night having really scary dreams about a haunted house. So anyway, that's what's been going on. So I don't mean to talk down about the Kickstarter, because I think it's important to say that, like, I am in love with this Kickstarter. I am deeply, unequivocally, unabashedly in love with Tracy Queen, the graphic novel that it is raising money for. It's a project I've been working on for, I think, about 7 years-ish. I think I started writing it in like late 2011, early 2012. And I've been working on it ever since. The graphic novel is big. It's going to be about 300 pages total. So we have broken it up into shorter pieces. So right now we're fundraising for volume 1. In that volume, it's 36 pages of story. We're also going to have lots of like guest art and extras, padding out what's going to be basically a trade paperback, sort of a graphic novel on its own. There's going to be illustrations by the amazing J.L. Draco, who is my partner in this venture. There's going to also be a cover by the fantastic artist Stevie Ray Drawn, and we're going to have guest art from a whole bunch of other artists who are fans of Tracy Queen. So if you are watching this, you would be well served to go to the Kickstarter and check it out. We've got a super awesome video that tells you more about it, and then of course there's all the details on the Kickstarter page. We've got fabulous rewards. We've got testimonials coming in from people who love Tracy Queen. It's a big deal, and it is by far the biggest Kickstarter that I have ever run. So literally anything that you can do to help, whether it's like telling your friend about it over brunch, or if it's sharing it on your social media, if it's donating, fantastic. Like anything that anyone can do to basically get more eyes on the Kickstarter page helps us get closer to our goal. And you know, we want to be able to pay everyone who's involved in making this Kickstarter happen. So we're funding production costs, which is basically, you know, paying the artists, paying all the people who work their butts off on this awesome project, and also paying for printing, and then hopefully we'll be able to also pay for some distribution of the graphic novel to the people, obviously, who helped us on the Kickstarter, but maybe also some comic book shops would be really cool. So it's a big project. It is taking over my life, and I wanted to tell everybody here about it. After the video is over, I will put a link to the Kickstarter in the notes under the video here and on YouTube. But if anyone who's watching wants to link to the Kickstarter now, that would be helpful. You could totally do that. I'd be fine with it. I am gonna reach up here. Sorry, everybody. I forgot to put my phone on silent before I started this, so we've been getting a few little interruptions when I get notifications. Okay. So, back to the main event. I'm Lynsey G. I'm a writer. I write about sex and porny stuff. Hi Stevie Ray! Thank you for posting the link to the Kickstarter. Everyone, Stevie Ray Tron is the cover artist for Tracy Queen Volume 1. She's a fantastic artist. She does amazing digital paintings, and she has her own Patreon, her own Twitter, her own everything. She's going to be launching a Kickstarter of her own soon, so check her out. She's fantastic. She's one of the best people I know. Thank you, Rosetta. Rosetta is also one of the best people I know, and also an artist who does commissions and does live streams of her art, which is mostly art, like beautiful, awesomely painted, sweet, cuddly clowns. So check that out. Check everybody out. And JL Draco, who is also in the chat, is the illustrator of Tracy Queen, and is also the illustrator of several other projects of mine, as well as the founder, creator, I'm not sure what the right word is, of a gigantic fantasy epic that he's been working on for literally decades. He's brilliantly talented, so everybody check him out too. So I think without further ado, I'm gonna launch into this chapter reading. We can talk more about stuff afterwards, and I will do a Q&A where people can ask me questions about anything they've got questions about, but I think I want to get into the meat of this chapter first. Oh, thank you, Stevie. I don't know if I would say that this live stream is particularly strong. I am not prepared. but check out my spoopy makeup and my spoopy jewelry. Look, I don't know if you guys can see this one. This is a ring that I got from a friend. It's like a vampire ring. I'm trying to get it into the... There it is in focus. Ooh, spooky. And then this ring is from the same friend. It's got a skull on it. Spooky. Okay. All right, here we go. I am going to read Chapter 4, The Early Days. And this is sort of going to give you information about what it was like to be a porn reviewer in 2007. There is a photo here of my stack of porn. This was sort of like the ultimate collection of pornography that I had when I basically stopped doing porno reviews for money. I still occasionally will review like a friend's film or something on my blog, but I don't get paid to do it anymore. So these are all DVDs. And if you get a copy of the book, you'll be able to see all of those titles. Some of them are really fantastic, or the opposite of fantastic, depending on, how you gauge these things. So, all right, here we go. I'm going to read Chapter 4, The Early Days. Also, please forgive me, I'm terrible at titling things, so, like, the chapter titles in this book are not good. I went into it thinking that an editor or somebody would make titles for me, and then it didn't happen, so, yeah, The Early Days. Here we go. A week later, and a week after I basically landed my porno DVD reviewing gig, a week later I landed the gallery job. So I took my place as the receptionist at an elite art gallery in Midtown Manhattan that catered to the artistic tastes of millionaires. I manned the phones, greeted customers, provided informative materials on exhibits, and turned prospective buyers over to salespeople. And in downtime between clients, I wrote porn reviews. I elected to take a nom de porn, as Jay Vegas called it, from one of my favorite cult films. An easy decision that I didn't spend much time on, which at that point more or less reflected my involvement with the porn industry as a whole. It didn't require much brain power, aside from that pesky feminism issue, with which I continued to wrestle. I tried to play it cool, though, for the sake of my poker face at the gallery, and in order to keep making the money that came rolling in. I wrote about the films as if their contents came as no surprise, as if they served only to turn me on, or better yet, to make me laugh. The magazine's line was to take everything with many grains of salt, so I cracked jokes as much as I could, and endeavored to keep in the forefront of my mind the fact that every person involved in these situations was a consenting adult. It was a challenge for me, but it paid well enough to make it worthwhile. My editor, Jay Vegas, on the other hand, seemed to have been born for his job. He had half a dozen pen names, and he got a sort of childlike glee out of coming up with the colorful new terminology for sex acts and the people who practiced them. And he was good at it. If there were some sort of award system for excellence in witty porn journalism, I'm sure he would have gone home with a trophy for most inventive use of jerk-off in an alliterative sentence. Alliterative sentence. That is hard to say. He saw the porn industry as the pinnacle of humanity's capacity for Oh my god, I'm going to start that one over. He saw the porn industry as the pinnacle of humanity's capacity for dark, self-deprecating humor, and his role was to point out and capitalize on the ridiculousness of it all. But even with his enthusiasm and the magazine's more general laissez-faire attitude toward most things pornographic, there were still rules in place to remind me that this business wasn't all fun and filthy games. For instance, we could not use the word kid or child anywhere for fear of setting off child porn alarms. And I was prohibited from mentioning female ejaculation, even if it happened in a movie I was reviewing. I was told that any mention of squirting was prohibited, because in some places where the magazine was distributed, this could be considered urination, which could in turn be considered obscenity, and which could lead to any number of negative consequences for the magazine and the makers of the film in question. I assumed at the time that the places vaguely referred to in this prohibition must be some backwaters where women were not allowed to vote, but it later became clear that the backwater in question was, incredibly, the UK. The epicenter of the civilized world is apparently not enlightened enough to admit that women squirting in ecstasy is not, in fact, the same as women peeing. Oddly, it wasn't until 2014 that female ejaculation was officially banned in adult films in the UK, along with spanking that leaves visible marks, face-sitting, and the use of restraints, to much protestation and rebellion from British pornographers. Nobody can put their finger on why exactly these and a number of other benign and extremely widespread sex acts were deemed obscene by the Brits, but even if they could, they'd have to be careful not to finger too hard, lest somebody squirt on camera. But the biggest and hardest rule at the magazine was that if I didn't have anything positive to say about a film, I could choose not to review it, but I could not choose to give it a bad review. The relationship the magazine had established with certain production companies did not allow for less than glowing words about those companies' work. If I wanted to make my $100 per review, I had to come up with ways to gloss over the things I didn't like. So I settled into a sort of benevolent numbness in my viewing habits in order to facilitate benign reviews. After the initial excitement about the novelty of it faded, I spent a lot of time holding down the fast-forward button. I would press play every so often, of course, to take note of the soundtrack, dirty talk, and so on, But if I'd watched every film at normal speed, I would have had very little time left over to spend all the money my reviews were earning me. And I would have been bored absolutely to tears. I'd often review 5 films a month, each of which stretched on for 4 to 6 hours of hardcore fucking. Who could possibly be interested enough to watch all of that? And who would pay the $40 or $50 that these jumbo packs of porn were retailing for? No matter how gleaming a review I wrote for Anal Cream Pies No. 7, I just couldn't imagine who was buying all of this smut. The answer came to me in a roundabout way through the business of working for a dirty magazine. About a month into my reviewing career, the editorial director told me that he could give my name to an editor at another magazine, one that wasn't about to go bankrupt. Oh, nobody was buying all that smut. It began clicking into place that the industry that supported these magazines, the same one responsible for elastic assholes, wasn't just hyperventilating over the threat of internet piracy. It was failing. I'm going to take a short break for a sip of water. Check out my stainless steel straw, eh? Pretty sweet. I'm always slightly worried that I'm going to crack a tooth on it, but so far so good. Alright. The porn industry basically went through a turbulent adolescence in the 70s, blossomed into young adulthood in the 80s, and settled into a corpulent, self-satisfied self-satisfied routine in the 90s. It kept on top of new technology, but it got a bit round in the middle, secure in its status as the recession-proof industry. Production companies fattened themselves on easy profits and let their business models languish. But why didn't they call it elastholes? Because that looks like elastholes, and that's just confusing, JL. People would not know what they were getting into. Elastic assholes is better. Sorry. It's just the truth. Okay. Production companies fattened themselves on the easy profits and let their business models languish, unaware that they would be harshly yanked from their stupor early in the new millennium. When the internet exploded onto the capitalist playing field, pornography was naturally the first to exploit its promise, but it was also one of the first to fall. In the early days of the World Wide Web, as most industries were trying to figure out how to make this new technology work for them, pornography jumped into the fray feet first, as it always had before. In their book about modern sexual desire, A Billion Wicked Thoughts, I don't actually know how to pronounce this, so Dr. Ogas and Dr. Cy Gautam state that there were fewer than 90 adult magazines published in America when the web went online in 1991, but by 1997 there were 900 pornographic websites. The adult industry took to the new technology like fish to water, establishing new models for payment and distribution that everyone else followed. Streaming video, like what I'm doing right now, membership websites, credit card verification systems, encryption coding, and nearly every other advancement in file sharing and video display were pioneered by pornography, and then were taken up by the rest of the world. Third-party payment processors like PayPal are particularly deep in debt to the porn industry. When opportunists realized the ease of making money on porn in the early days of the internet, they jumped on the bandwagon and proceeded to make a mess of things by laundering money. There were affiliate click-through systems that collected money on falsely generated traffic, porn sites used as fronts for less legal money-making strategies, and so on. Some sites would charge sky-high fees for website membership cancellations, which unsurprisingly took place quite frequently, since no one had figured out yet that the name of a porn site showing up on someone's credit card statement might cause blowback. For the people whose significant others looked askance at smut, membership cancellations were routine. And so were chargebacks, people denying outright that they had made a purchase from a porn site in the first place and demanding their money back. Due to rampant chargeback rates and fraud, credit card companies started to turn down online porn business. To this day, American Express will not work with the industry at all. Unable to process payments at reasonable rates with the remaining credit card companies, porn companies were bereft until third-party payment processing companies came to their rescue, taking on the risk that their clients' businesses posed and charging through the nose for the privilege. In short, PayPal might not have come to be unless the adult industry had paved the way. In an ironic twist, however, the industry that birthed online payment solutions is now a victim of online finance's scorn. Pornographers and a variety of other business people who deal in sex are prohibited from using most major payment platforms online. Overall, the finance industry has astoundingly not yet gotten over the sting of the first few years of internet craziness. It is still convinced that porn, despite its almost ludicrous financial promise, must be lumped in with other high-risk companies, like loan consolidation and online gambling. Never mind that pornographers have gotten savvy to the idea that nobody wants their credit card statement to read bigtitsxxx.com, or that as society adapts, chargeback rates have gone down for porn purchases. Never mind that, as Cindy Gallop, founder of the real-world sex porn alternative site MakeLoveNotP, told me, the bank that welcomes ventures like ours, designed to change the world through sex, will make a fucking shitload of money when sex-oriented companies inevitably flock to it. Most banks still flat-out refuse to do business with porn companies, citing outdated morality clauses or the puritanical interests of their investors. Compounding the existing squeamishness of the finance industry regarding online porn money, in 2012, the Department of Justice launched Operation Choke Point, which is really ironically named. It's an initiative that encouraged banks to restrict services to businesses that pose reputational risk, like pornography, online gambling, and payday loans, according to the Washington Post. Operation Choke Point was behind a 2013 rash of porn stars' personal bank accounts being shut down and sex workers being refused service at financial institutions for no given reason. The operation was exposed to public scorn, but to date there is no evidence that it has been shut down, and it certainly didn't encourage banks or the credit card companies and payment processors that depend on their largesse to work with adult companies online. In sum, porn may have gotten a heady start on the internet, but its kerfuffle with online finance was an early indication of how quickly cyberspace could turn. Though porn initially made huge financial gains online, hackers and pirates were not far behind. Whereas the jizbiz, as Jay Vegas liked to call it, had learned to think quickly to keep up with the pace of innovation, it had never before had to deal with anything quite as fast as the web and its legions of faceless thieves. Oh, hello, everybody. Hi, John. Hi, JC. Thank you for coming to my spooky live stream. Spooky because I'm wearing spooky stuff. That's about it. And spooky because internet piracy is spooky. In the words of veteran performer Tim von Swine, technology has always been the midwife of destruction in porno. Porn used to make its bread and butter selling things that had smut on them, like DVDs and VHS tapes and magazines. But with the advent of the internet, pornography became available as information that was easily reproducible, easily distributable, and, when hackers caught up with it, entirely free to whoever wanted it. The porn industry, like others, reeled. Brad Armstrong, one of the most decorated directors in porn history, once told me that the internet hurt porn from every angle. People can even shoot movies on their $200 phone and throw it up on the internet, he said. If any business had to deal with that kind of saturation and overflow, there's no way they'd be operating. Thankfully, everybody's horny. That's the only thing that keeps us going. He was right. Unlike many other industries, pornography didn't have powerful protectors to buoy it in its time of need. Nobody cared enough about porn to publicly stand up for it. Armstrong told me that he sometimes found himself wondering, if we stopped tomorrow, there's still so much of it out there, would anybody really care? It appeared at times that they wouldn't, and the industry stumbled. It got desperate. It started paying performers less, doing away with the bells and whistles as the ship began to sink. The sex scenes I was watching in the late 2000s were products of fear, anger, desperation, acted out in the language of lust. The industry was thrashing out its own death throes, flailing and clutching at its throat, certain that the end was nigh. And as ridiculous as it seems, given the direness of the situation, much of the industry was refusing to do much to help itself. Porn, having earned a reputation for paving the way forward with technology since the beginning of technology, was falling behind. Case in point, as recently as 2012, I was reviewing DVDs instead of video files for magazine reviews, waiting for them to arrive in the mail instead of downloading them. Meanwhile, a video file with no cover or packaging could have been emailed in hardly a fraction of the time and at literally zero cost. It was incredible. The adult industry may have invented the internet as we know it in many ways, but in plenty of others it likes to cling to the past. Many companies didn't evolve with the times, and that's why they're dying off. The smart guys behind the internet porn boom capitalized on it. Years back, DVD people smirked at web guys, saying stuff like, "Oh, it's just internet. Quicker scenes with lower rates because it's just internet content." Whoa, did they get a dick slap of reality a few years later. That was a quote from director Ivan in a 2010 interview I did with him, which I somehow just skipped over the attribution for before the quote. So that was Ivan who said that. In other words, the old world order of the porn industry, which had come into being by way of innovation and rule-breaking, had calcified itself into an immovable leviathan that was all too easy to topple. The industry was in decline not because of one great failing, but because it was too bloated and proud to acknowledge that thousands of seemingly insignificant ruffians were picking away at it, bit by bit. Stealing a scene, reproducing it, sending it off elsewhere, and removing profits, brick by brick. By the time the problem was recognized as a crisis, porn companies scrambled to counter the damage, but nobody knew how. There was no clear way forward, no new technology to save them, or fresh business model waiting to take over. New video technologies like HD and 3D and 4K were adopted by high rollers, but for most in the industry, cheaper and quicker seemed the only way forward. Profits weren't just dwindling, they were evaporating. Porn magazines and companies were crumbling left and right, and the magazine I was writing for appeared to be the next to go. So that's the end of that chapter. And I did want to add that my whole thing about the fact that I was reviewing DVDs in 2012 when nobody was even buying DVDs anymore, there's actually more of a reason for that than I realized at the time. A lot of the biggest awards ceremony in the adult industry, the AVN Awards, specifically bases its awards giving criteria on DVD sales. So basically, there are a few awards that they hand out for websites and for, online only content, but the big stuff, like the really fancy awards that everybody wants to win, are based on DVD distribution. So if you are not distributing your work on DVDs, you will not be considered for those awards. So there's a reason why people were and still are in some cases really clinging to DVDs as a distribution model, which is kind of funny, really, if you think about it, because it was already outdated in 2012, and it's more outdated now in 2018, but that's still the standard that people are using for the most prestigious awards in the industry. People call them the Oscars of porn. And there's actually been a lot of unrest in the past few years because there are a few genres that don't primarily distribute on DVD, and they're mad that they're no longer being considered for awards. And it's on the one hand, well, you're not meeting the criteria, you're not distributing on DVDs, so you can't get an award. But on the other hand, it's who watches porn DVDs? Nobody's buying those anymore. Maybe you need to update your model. So that's part of the reason anyway that I was watching DVDs when I was writing porn reviews. John says award shows are always so behind. Yeah. I mean, award shows are they're the place where everybody gets together to celebrate tradition, right? Which there's a place for, but if you're punishing people for not doing what tradition dictates and therefore not making money, that sucks. Alright, so that's the end of the chapter. It was kind of a dense chapter. There was a lot in there about financial stuff, which I know is not exactly what everybody thinks about when they think about porn. But it's really important to actually understanding any industry, but I think particularly the porn industry, because there are definitely people out there who love porn, right? Who love making it, who see it as their creative outlet, who love the genre, and who are doing it because it's their passion. But there's probably a lot more people, just numbers-wise, who are in the porn industry because they want to make money. And that's why I think in a lot of cases, like what I was just reading about, how when the internet changed the way that porn was consumed, and changed how many people were stealing it, how slow the industry was to try to make any big structural changes that would save them. I think a lot of that was because not everyone. Most of the people who were involved in the industry at that time were literally there to make a buck. They weren't necessarily like going to agitate for the continued existence of the porn industry. They wanted to make as much money as they could and get the hell out before it collapsed. And that's, you know, that's legit. That's fine. People do things for their own reasons, and whatever works. But I think that a lot of the sluggishness of the industry was due to the fact that there weren't a whole lot of people that were sort of like willing to get up on a high horse and be like, no, we've got to band together and come together as an industry to make this work. You know, a lot of people were just like, all right, that was fun while it lasted, you know. And in the intervening years, the industry has shrunk very, very considerably. There used to be like hundreds of companies that were producing content all the time, and now there's like maybe a few dozen that really operate that way. And instead, most content is being made by individual performers or, you know, groups of performers that get together, but not by the same sort of like top-down hierarchical structure of companies that film content. JL says, not making money for not doing what tradition dictates. Sounds vaguely familiar. Yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing. So I don't know if everyone out there knows this, everyone who's watching this video now or later, but I run a indie publishing company. And it's primarily making comics, graphic novels, and illustrated novels. And that is the publishing company that's behind the Tracy Queen Kickstarter that I was talking about before. It also has published this comic book, my first standalone comic book called Pack. It's published 6 different versions of this short comics anthology, which is full of short comics by people from all over the world. It's also published an illustrated novel and is going to be publishing another one in the next, I don't know, 6 months or so. Yeah, so we're doing like the not the way it's traditionally done publishing route, and it is really hard. We have learned. John asks, do you think the fact that we seem to be heading into a self-owned world had an effect on that? You mean like on the downfall of the porn industry? I think it's sort of a chicken and egg question. Because like I said a minute ago, that, you know, it used to be very much like a company controlled ecosystem in porn. You know, you had companies that filmed all the content, and then the people who performed just came in, you know, were hired to do a job by the company, did their work, and went home. And because internet pirates were making that business model so much less lucrative than it had been in the past, a lot of those companies, like I said, were kind of like, well, that was nice while it lasted, bye, you know, took their money and left, which forced people who were performers to basically make a decision to get the hell out of the industry and try something different, or to take control of the means of production and do it for themselves. And a lot of people just left. But there were a lot of people, I think particularly in the performer pool, there are a lot of people who really love making porn. And so there are a lot of those people who looked for ways to take control of their careers without companies hiring them. And so it did become much more of a self-ownership model over the years. But it took a while because, you know, technology had to catch up with people's desire to do that. So there was like when I first started doing reviews, I remember thinking, man, I wish I knew more about a lot of these people who are performing. I wish that they were able to make the content that they wanted to, and I could learn about them that way. But it took a while for, you know, making your own website to become really accessible, filming your own content, you know, and being able to do it well and distribute it online. It took a while between sort of companies starting to fail and all of that technology being developed to a point where it was accessible enough for people to really make their own content. So I think that internet piracy led in a lot of ways to the sort of self-owned, self-controlled content that we see a lot of online now. But I think that the desire for that type of content to be made was always there. So yeah, it's a little bit of a circular thing. Like, I think technology might have continued in the direction that it did regardless. But I do think that people wanting to make porn for themselves probably drove a lot of the innovation that happened. Or at least, like, took that innovation and used it in a new way, which then would give rise to, you know, some new app, some new platform, some new technology. Oh yes, thank you, JL, for saying Oneshi Press. Oneshi Press is the name of my publishing company. It's right here. And it's gonna be backwards on this video, and I know that. But I really like this cover, which, by the way, was made by Stevie Ray Drawn, who is here watching us today. This is gorgeousness. I can try to open it the whole way, but it's hard to get back far enough to see the whole thing. Beautiful, beautiful work by Stevie. Okay, so John says I have both of those next to me. Oh, awesome. John says, I think a lot of porn stars realize with social media, I am the reason people tune in and I can do whatever I want. That is absolutely true. I think that especially, well, probably MySpace first, but then particularly Twitter, was huge for porn performers because, A, Twitter is still one of the very, very few social media outlets in the world that allows nudity. So people can actually advertise the content that they're making on Twitter, which is huge for porn people because most places won't allow, God forbid there be female nipples anywhere, you know, on the internet, or more than that. So Twitter has been huge, and it's really allowed performers to meet their consumer base for really the first time. For a long time in porn, when you had sort of the like producer run system, the company run system, porn stars were really kept kind of cloistered because companies would, rather than just hiring a bunch of people, making a movie and sending them on their way, most companies like that had a big budget and were sort of a big deal would actually have like a stable of performers that they had on contract. And those performers, they would spend a lot of time and money and energy cultivating those performers and cultivating their image in the public. And that involved, you know, sending them on press tours to different places all over the country, to do, you know, feature dancing gigs at strip clubs, to do signings at, you know, porn shops, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, they were kept very separate. They were treated like celebrities. So that was like the model that people were operating on for a while. But then when the internet happened, and social media happened, people started being able to really interact with the porn stars that they loved. And that really opened things up for everybody, because people started to realize, like, oh yeah, like, I'm the big deal here, not just because my boss tells me so, but because people are really interested in me. And that really changed the landscape for, like, what constitutes a porn star, you know? And I think it's been, I mean, in some ways it's been bad because there's not the same money to be made in porn anymore because you don't have those big lucrative contract deals for performers anymore. But I mean, even at the height of the contract system, there was like not that many people actually had contracts. And then there was everybody else, you know, trying to sort of pick up the scraps, which is not so great. But now kind of everybody is trying to pick up scraps. Because there's like maybe like 5 companies that do contract deals at this point, and only really like 1 or 2 of them really cultivates their celebrity status for their stars the way that old companies used to. But there's so much more opportunity for people to make their own content and do what they want and interact with their fans in their own way that I don't know if it's exactly leveled the playing field, but it's definitely made porn stardom more accessible for more people. John says, most ventures happen from too many no's. Usually, eventually people say, I'm tired and I'll just do it my way. Yeah, that's really true. And the internet has made that much, much more possible for people. It's still hard. Because I think in like the good old days, you know, porn was like you hoped to become a star. And being a star meant not really having to do that much of the hustle on your own, you know, that sort of the grind, the administrative tasks, that was all taken care of by somebody else. But as I'm learning as an independent publisher, doing stuff on your own online requires a massive amount of time and energy that you have to put in yourself, and also a lot of learning. You know, anyone who wants to be a porn star online has to learn how to use not only, you know, camera and editing software, but also all of the different platforms on which you might want to distribute your work. You have to figure out all the ins and outs, and getting paid is hard because you can't just hook up your PayPal to it. And it's like almost every new like payment process that comes out, porn stars will like flock to it and be like, all right, I'm using this, yay! And then that company will realize that porn stars aren't using it, and that the bank that's backing them is not going to keep backing them if they keep doing business with porn stars, so then they shut it down. So I've heard horror stories from people who, you know, spent all this time and energy trying to figure out how to get themselves paid for the content they're making, and then they lose a ton of money because like PayPal realized what they were doing and froze their account and never paid out. And that happens with all different types of platforms all the time. So in order to actually make money, you either have to be someone who works for a company that will pay you, like a lot of webcamming companies do, but they take gigantic cuts. Same with like, you know, clips for sale and most of the porn-friendly like clip sites and webcamming studios, they take a huge cut out of the money that you're making. So if you want to do it on your own, you basically have to be like a genius with finance to figure out who you can process your money through. Are you going to make a shell company with a benign name and hope that nobody realizes what it is and then pass your money through there? Are you going to try to find like a payment processor that will work with you that will also take a huge cut if they know what you're doing? It's really tough out there for people who want to make adult content. Just like it is with anybody who wants to make indie content of any kind and make money on it. But with adult content, you have the added hurdles of, you know, nobody who deals with money wants to talk to you or even let you have an account. John says, so do you think the content is starting to outweigh the title of porn star? I'm not sure what that means. Since all the social media I've seen, way many more kinks and such online that are accessible. I'm not sure what you're asking. Would you be able to rephrase? Are you saying like niche performers as opposed to porn stars? Like, cause that, I think I can see what you're asking, but I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, so I don't know if I want to go down a whole rabbit hole in one direction only to find out you meant a totally different rabbit hole. And also, I need to take a drink of water, so hang on a second. I will mention briefly that, oh wait, no, here we go. I haven't had enough coffee. Is the content starting to be more important than the title of porn star? I don't know. I think that depends on who you ask. I mean, there are definitely still people who are sort of like general all-around porn stars. They don't have maybe the same like backing behind them. They don't necessarily have the same like glamour around their name as, you know, Jenna Jameson and Asia Carrera and Sasha Grey, you know, those people that were like a big deal. But there are people who are making very good livings as porn stars, working primarily for other people's companies and not really like doing their own stuff as much. But I do think that for reasons that are very complicated that I'm probably not going to fully go into here, but I will cover in later chapters, the explosion of easily available online porn has made the categorization of content a big deal. I mean, it always kind of was, like if you were going to a porn shop in the late 80s, you know, you wanted to know what you were getting, so if you had a whole bunch of VHS tapes on different shelves, each shelf would have its own like niche category, you know, that it was in. So like this kink, that kink, you know, heterosexual, homosexual, peeing, you know, blowjobs, like whatever your thing is, you'd find it in its own separate section because you don't want to pay a bunch of money and then go home and end up with something that you didn't want. So that's important. Always has been. But since the internet has made sort of like every type of content more easily available. I do think that categorization of exactly what is going on in each type of content has become more important. Yeah. Because it's so hard to make money on porn because so much of it is available for free that if you don't have your content labeled with exactly the right kink, fetish, sex act, whatever it is that people are looking for, A, people won't find it, or B, if you don't have it labeled correctly, somebody might pay for it and then not get what they wanted and like go on the Twitter storm, like firebomb your business by saying that you don't know what you're doing and like, trashing your name or something. So yeah, I do think that like the actual content of the content is more important from a sales perspective. But also like the one thing that's been really great about the internet, I think, is that it has really democratized niche interests, right? Like whereas people who were into furry stuff used to be very isolated and find it very difficult to find people who are like them. Now on the internet, they have their own communities and it's great. They, meet friends who are like-minded and they have conventions and they organize it all online. And I think that the same goes for, like porn. Like whatever you're into, you can now find it easily. And even if it's very, very specific content, you can probably find it. And if you can't find it, you can probably find a performer that you like on Twitter and say, hey, would you be interested in making this type of content for me? So yeah, like the details, I think, have become much more important than they used to be. I think of things like Bait Bus. It used to be more about the stars, and now it's more, here's our niche, let's push that. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think the same thing is happening, like, literally in every entertainment industry. Every genre has gotten more highly specific because it's easier for the people who make it to find their specific audience of people who want exactly that and deliver it directly to them. I mean, it's happened in books, in publishing, it's happened in movies, I mean, in TV, like, I mean, when I was growing up, there was cable TV. I didn't have cable TV, but even, when I was a kid, there were like, 15, 20 cable channels, plus your like 5 to 10 network channels, and that was it. That's all the TV that there was. Now, there are so many different places making so many types of TV that like almost no matter what it is that you like in a TV show, you can find. And that's directly because of the internet. It's democratized the whole process. So yeah, I think the same thing definitely goes for porn. It's like where there used to be like, 15 genres, depending on what video store you were at, maybe like 5 to 15 different genres of porn. Now, I couldn't even guess how many different genres there are. And then there's, subcategories within the genres. Which is like, it's great. It means that there's more opportunities for people who have specific needs and interests. And there's more opportunities for people who want to make the content and sell it. So, win-win. That's how I see it. I know that not everyone thinks that more porn is better, but I do. I think porn is a good thing. I mean, not everybody's into it, and that's totally fine. But I think that sexual self-expression is just one form of self-expression, and it's awesome for people to be able to do it, and fantastic for people to enjoy it, and especially fantastic for people to pay the people who made it for. That's a healthy ecosystem. And especially for people who have niche interests. Is it niche or niche? Is it both? I don't know. But for people who have those types of interests, that are very specific, I think it's great for them to be able to find what works for them and, get what they need and feel good about it. Like, that's awesome. Way to not feel ostracized. Like, that's what we're all looking for, right? John says, also, feels like I don't have to fast forward or skip through stuff. I don't need to get what I want like it used to be. Oh yeah, that is because everything used to be made on the DVD model, where you had an entire movie, and you would have, 6 or 7 or however many scenes on that movie, and each scene had to like tick off certain boxes to be considered like a real porn scene. And that is also goes back to like what the award granting institutions are looking for. But you know, there was like a standard issue, like first you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then pop shot done. And that is not really necessary anymore. People are much more able to film specifically what people are looking for, and whether that follows a formula or not doesn't matter as much anymore. But also, you know, what used to be available was full scenes on DVDs, which could be, you know, anywhere from 20 minutes to like an hour long, and you would find what you wanted in there somewhere, but you had to watch most of it to find what you wanted. But honestly, internet piracy shrunk down the 45-minute scene to like 2 minutes of the best part of the scene, right? And that drove people nuts for a really long time, and still does drive a lot of people nuts. Some people really want the context of the full scene, and you know, especially for like filmmakers who want to tell a story with every scene, it really sucks if people are only interested in like 2 minutes of, you know, this hour-long scene that they filmed. But the fact that online piracy was so successful by chopping up big scenes into tiny little pieces made, you know, astute porn makers realize that this is what people wanted. And so that has become much more standard, to do shorter scenes that get right to the point, that don't have the story around them. There's still a lot of companies that do the longer scenes also, and that's like a whole sort of a genre unto itself now. You know, things with like backstory as opposed to like just straight to the action. So I mean, there's really literally something for everyone. Like, if you can imagine it, there's somebody out there making it. But yeah, things have definitely gotten smaller and shorter. And the only thing that bothers me about the fact that like you can totally just get off to GIFs on the internet now. I mean, there's beauty to that, but it's also a bummer because like you don't get any of the bells and the whistles that are supposed to go along with the scene. Like, you don't get the name of the director, you don't get the name of the company, you don't get the names sometimes even of the porn stars. All you get is this tiny little image, or, you know, 20 seconds of moving imagery, that undercuts all of the people who worked on this product to have it made. And I think that actually can be dangerous for especially young people who like don't really know what they're watching, which is a big thing that I talked about in my book, actually. Like, when I was in my early 20s and I didn't have any money and I didn't have any knowledge about any of this, I was watching, you know, free pirated online porn, and I didn't understand the context behind any of it. And I was scared because I didn't know if these people had been paid, you know, if they were actually consenting to what they were doing. Like, I didn't know the context of it. And I think that that's dangerous for a lot of people who get assumptions in their heads about what sex is. You know, what sex between two people or more looks like. You know, if you're just watching porn and you think that this is literally just people documenting themselves having sex without any preparation or, you know, talking about consent beforehand or any of this, it can be very misleading. So I think that there is a danger to like short little specific scenes not being contextualized. But that's sort of a larger issue, which again I will get to in later chapters. They're really it's really sex ed. You know, are we talking about pornography as part of sex ed or not? JL says, I think it depends on who says it. Don't know what you're talking about anymore, but I'm sure it made sense when you wrote it. Does anyone have any questions about the book, about me, about porn, about Tracy Queen? I would love to talk about Tracy Queen because I am raising funds for Tracy Queen. Oh, niche or niche. Niche or niche. Nietzsche or niche. I don't know. I feel like it looks like it should just be niche. And I like the word niche. But I'm pretty sure that, like, fancy correct people say niche. So, I don't know. I don't know what the correct thing is. I am a writer who doesn't know how to pronounce words because I mostly have read words instead of saying them out loud. That's how my brain works. I think it's N-I-C-H-E, I think. Is there an E? I think there's an E. Yeah, N-I-C-H-E. Oh, I use niche, but I've never claimed to be correct. Well, I don't know if I can hang out on my live stream with a not correct person, John. I just don't know. I feel like I am completely correct in all that I do. That's not true. That's a huge, big fat lie. But it's Halloween, and things are spooky and weird, and I can lie as much as I want. I don't think I'm making sense. I think I stopped making sense a little while ago. JC says, I think I have a hard time trusting that people weren't roped into something they didn't really want to do. Is there a way to really know if someone was fully into the scene they were filming versus coherence? I mean, coercion or coerced? I'm thinking coerced. Yeah, okay. I mean, you can never really know, like, what's going on in somebody's head, you know, like, ever. There are a lot of companies who, before and or after a porn scene, will sit down with the performers and say, like if it's beforehand, okay, so what's your deal? What are you doing here? What are you here to do? What do you like? What do you not like? And they'll film this conversation with the performers, and a lot of the time it'll be, you know, the performers who are working together all talking about what they want, what they're into, what's okay and what's not okay. And then there will be an after interview where they talk about what just happened, how it felt for everybody, whether they were happy with it or not. And that's a really good standard, because, you know, it does two things. A, it contextualizes the scene so the people who are watching it understand that these people are being paid to do what they're doing, you know, and this is their job. They are professionals. They want to be here. And it also, like, provides, I don't remember what the second thing. That's the most important thing, though. Like, it provides that layer of, like, understanding that this is professionally produced. But the thing with that is, like, you know, if it's your job and you show up to set and you're not really feeling it that day, like, if you're having a bad day or, like, you feel bloated and you don't really want to have sex, but, like, this is literally your paycheck, you know, you might not have the best time of your life on camera that day. It doesn't mean that you're being coerced necessarily, and it doesn't mean that you had a great time either. It's you know, it's like middle of the road sex, and that happens all the time to everybody, whether it's on camera or not. You know, not everybody's having a mind-blowing experience every time that they're going at it. But it is also definitely possible for producers or directors or whatever to say, okay, we do the scene, we do the interview afterwards, and without necessarily saying it out loud, the understanding is you say you had a great time for the camera, and then you get paid and you go home. And if you don't say that you had a great time, it's not that you won't get paid necessarily, but, like, you might not get hired again by that person because they'll think that you're being a diva, you know? Or, you know, it's, all I'm saying is, like, the before and after interviews are fantastic, because it does provide an extra layer of security for people who are watching to know that what they're watching was made ethically, but you can't always know. And I mean, that's kind of the difficult thing around consent, sexual consent in any situation. Like, what someone says and wants to be true for the sake of the situation is not always the same as what's really going on, you know, inside. And I think that the best we can do as a society and as responsible consumers of pornography both, is to try to, like, up our emotional IQ, right? Try to learn what to look for in people's faces and body language when you're interacting with someone face to face, but also when you're watching someone on video. And again, that can be really difficult depending on the content that you're watching, because, you know, a lot of porn is based on like really unpolitically correct fantasies. You know, there's consensual non-consent, which is, you know, the premise is that someone is not consenting but they're having sex anyway, which is a huge fantasy for a lot of people. And you can't really say that that's not okay if it's something that really is, you know, a big tantalizing thing for people. But it makes it really hard sometimes when you're watching a scene to look at somebody's body language and facial expressions and actually really know if they're acting or not. And that, I mean, that goes across like everything about porn. Because you don't ever want to support people who are making content where they are not being ethical with their performers, you know, where they're not listening, and where they're maybe violating someone's consent. But from the production side, it's complicated. Consent is always complicated, but I think particularly, you know, when there's money involved, when somebody is faced with a decision between going along with something that maybe they're not really comfortable with for the sake of their paycheck and for the sake of their continued ability to work with all of these people by not, you know, causing a scene or you know, being dramatic or whatever. And these are all horrible. It's horrible that people have to make these decisions. And it's horrible that anyone would say, oh, you're being such a drama queen, I'll never hire you again because you called for a stop to the action when this person did this thing that you didn't like. That's bullshit, and it's horrible. But it is a reality that people who are making porn have to weigh, you know, how far across your boundaries is too far. And, you know, how well do you know these people? How safe do you feel bringing up your concerns? And the ideal would be that you're on a set where you trust all of these people and they've made it very, very clear to you that your comfort is of the utmost importance to them. But unfortunately, that's just not always going to be the case. So there are a lot of hard decisions that have to go into it. My short answer, that was a really long ramble, and again, I'm going to get way, way more into these topics in future chapters. Actually, the next chapter talks a lot about issues of fantasy and how that makes porn a difficult and complicated situation. But the most important thing that I can say in answer to that question is, if you are watching a scene or considering watching a porn scene and you are not sure, you know, where it's going to stand on the ethics front, the best thing you can do, honestly, is find out the people who were involved in making it, especially if it was made like by a production company. Look up that production company along with the words ethical, like on Google, because people like me, there's a bunch of us, literally write articles about ethics in porn for mainstream publications. We also write about them on blogs. And people who perform in pornography talk and give interviews and write on their own blogs and on social media about the experiences that they have. This definitely will not cover every porn scene that's ever been filmed, but especially in the past like 5 years or so, there's been a lot more people willing to come forward when they have a bad experience on set, and say something about it to their social media followers and sometimes to the media. So, like, if you are concerned about what you're watching, oh, hi, Adrian! Thank you for stopping by. If you're concerned about what you're watching, or you want to find out if this company is doing things ethically, you really honestly can Google it. If anything has gone wrong or has been made public, you will be able to find out about it. That's true. And again, it's like, it's complicated because sometimes there's like a production company that hires a director, and then maybe that director sucks and is bad to people, but the production company itself didn't know that when they hired him. Like, so there's a lot of layers there, but the other thing is, companies who are really concerned with, and directors and producers and performers who are really concerned with enthusiastic ongoing consent in porn, talk about it publicly. Like, it is a big deal for them. I mean, not all of them. Some people are just like really into it, but they don't want to get political about it. But most companies that really believe that that's important make that known. So if you do a little bit of digging, you can usually find that type of language either on websites or in articles that they've been interviewed for. If you can't find any language like that on somebody's website, that's a red flag. And I mean, there's always going to be people out there who are dishonest, who might say that they're like really all about consent and ethics and who really are not. But that's just par for the course as humans, you know. People know that ethics and consent are a big deal right now, so people can sometimes say things that are disingenuous. But if you spend any time, you know, looking into it, especially, you know, if you look into the performers that have worked with them, if there have been violations, it's very likely that you'll find out. And another thing that a lot of people don't think of, which might not always work, but which is a possibility, is that, like, if you have a scene that you like or a performer that you like who works for certain companies, find that person on Twitter and ask them, what was your experience like working for this company or filming this scene? I mean, you won't always get an answer. People are busy. They have other stuff to do. But there's definitely a possibility that you'll get a straight answer on it. And I would highly, highly recommend a few different companies for ethical content. Of course, it depends a lot on like what it is that you're looking for. But one of my favorites is Pink and White. They make the Crash Pad series, which is this very long-running series. It particularly highlights queer sexuality. It's body positive. It's inclusive of all sorts of different identities, and is very, very focused on bringing people of center into the forefront. There's all kinds of, did I say people of center? People of color, bringing them into the center is what I meant. Jesus. Whew, I haven't eaten today. I'm a little brain dead. But Pink and White is fantastic. They have a bunch of different websites, and they are very, very, very heavily focused on ethics. There's a bunch of other places, but particularly because JC is the one who mentioned it, and I know JC, I think that might be like right up your alley, and they're way, way, way into ethical production. John says, unfortunately, that's the downside of the veil. We won't ever be given that information. Even if it's talked about, they won't advertise, because it's the belief the scene is real that turns people on. John says, does your book cover the difference in payments based on the shots you provide? I don't know what you mean with the shots you provide. JC says, I didn't even know that was a thing, the post interviews. Yes, yeah. I mean, that's the difference between, like, and I don't say this to be mean, but like, a lot of the time that's the difference between if you buy a DVD or buy the film, like the whole scene from the people who made it, versus if you, like, you know, watch it for free on Pornhub. Most of what you see on Pornhub does not have, it's like the behind the scenes stuff, you know, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. But most companies, especially kink.com, they are very, very, very into the pre and post interviews. And that's great because kink.com does a lot of, you know, really intense kink stuff that can be frightening to people who don't, like, understand the inner workings of BDSM and the situations that these people are in. So kink.com was probably one of the first companies that started making that a regular thing, and it's been picked up by a lot of other companies since then. And I do think that for some companies, the pre and post interviews are actually more part of the record keeping process than necessarily what they present to the world. It's like a way of saying, you know, this person said on camera that they were here to do this thing and they did it and they liked it, and, you know, so our hands are clean. And again, that's one of those things that, like, bad people can use that to their own ends and good people can use that to help the world. So, you know, just a little bit of good and a little bit of bad in all of it, but it's at least trying. JL says, Tracy Allies and Tracy Queen are all ethical and mostly queer adult performers, right? Yes. I have been a big fan of Pink and White, like I just said, for many years. Their first DVD, Crash Pad, was the first queer porn film that I ever reviewed, and it blew my mind because I didn't know that was a thing. And I didn't know that you could have people who looked like this and fucked like this, like, being sexy on camera, and it opened my eyes. And that is something that I will talk about in the book also. Oh, right. So, going back to Pink and White real quick, a lot of people who performed for Pink and White are people that I went on to interview and meet and become like a raving fan of. So a bunch of those people, and a few others, are going to be making cameo appearances in Tracy Queen, the book that we're kickstarting right now. Although those cameos don't actually come in until later in the book, so the volume that we're kickstarting for right now doesn't have those cameos in it yet. But they're going to be coming in later. So, yeah, I'm trying to think off the top of my head some other companies that those people are involved with and that might work well for people who are into ethical content, but I'm a little brain dead. However, I do have in my book this list of recommended viewing for the feminist-minded. So I'm going to look at this real quick. Okay, great places that you can look up. Pink and White Productions. Their three big websites are crashpadseries.com, heavenlyspire.com, and pinklabel.tv, which is fantastic because Pink Label TV it's like Pornhub in that you can click through and find something that looks good to you, but then you pay for it. Like, you pay for exactly what you want. You don't have to pay for a whole, like, membership. You just pay for the video that you like, and it collects material from ethical and queer-friendly producers from all over the world. So that is a great place to go to find out who else out in the world is making ethical porn, and then you can buy videos from any of them, and then you can also go, most of them have their own websites that you can seek out more of their content from. So it's a really, really great place to base your operations out of. There's also MakeLoveNotP, which is what people would call amateur, I think, but what the people who made the website call real-world sex. So it's all made by the people who then send it in. So it's made at home by real people having real sex, and then curated by the Make Love Not Porn team. So that's all, like, pretty much as ethically made as you can get, and a lot of it is really beautiful. Lust Films, which is made by Erica Lust in Barcelona, has an excellent website called X Confessions that I love, where people write in about experiences that they've had or fantasies that they've had, and then Erica Lust, who runs the whole thing, picks which fantasies and stories she likes the best and makes short films out of them. They're beautifully produced. They're like, it's cinematic and gorgeous every time, and highly ethical, and there's all kinds of different stuff going on there. I really love that website. Trenchcoat X is a little bit more mainstream leaning. It's a little bit less focused on, like, feminist and queer stuff, but it has all of that also. And that website's really cool because they have specifically decided not to do your standard categories. Instead, they have a list of squicks and a list of squees, and when you sign up on the website, you can, like, develop your own profile, which will then inform what the website shows you. So they make some really good stuff. Foxhouse Films is a small producer. I think that they're in LA right now. They do a lot of queer and, like, power differentials and BDSM stuff. Very sexy content. I really like them a lot. Blue Artichoke is a feminist porn site and company in Amsterdam. They make beautiful, beautiful films. They're much more, like, contextual than just, like, hardcore fucking. BrightDesire.com, Porn for Women out of Australia. Ms. Naughty runs it, and she's a badass, and I love her. That website has, like, everything. There's stories, there's pictures, there's films, beautiful, beautiful stuff. Aorta Films, I'm not sure where they're located right now, but they're based out of New York. They make queer content that is gorgeous. They're, like, filmmaking geniuses, and they make, like, beautiful, beautiful films with, like, lovely music, and they're body positive and amazing. Jackie St. James. Now, she is a film writer and director, so she doesn't have her own company, but she makes, like, generally feature films with, like, lots of acting and scripting, beautiful filming, and she does a lot of like taboo topics and a lot of like BDSM stuff that's really, really gorgeously made. Madison Young is a porn star and filmmaker and artist and performance artist who is involved with a lot of different sort of layers of porn making, who makes really, really cool stuff. Look her up. She is going to be making an appearance in Tracy Queen. Shh.com is a porn site for women that's been around for almost 20 years and has done it all and is very, very cool. Trouble Films, I'm not sure how active Trouble Films is at this point. They've been, like, I don't know, sort of varying their level of involvement recently, but they're queer-friendly, body-positive, very kinky. Oh, and I don't have listed in here, A Four-Chambered Heart is a company that I love. I think they're based out of London. They're very community-oriented. They were raising money on Patreon for a while. I'm not sure if they still are because Patreon changed the rules. But A Four-Chambered Heart makes these, like, stunningly beautiful films with, like, beautiful music and soundtracks. And I don't know how to describe what they're doing because it's very different from, like, kind of anything I've ever seen. But they're gorgeous, 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 and really sexy. So that's my list. Go. Seek these people out on the internet. Buy their porn. John says, well, for example, in a lot of gay porn, the bottom, who's taking everything, gets paid the base rate. Everyone else, when they have their money shots, gets a bonus for each one. So ultimately, the one doing the most physical work ends up with less money. So pay rates based on, like, the role that you're playing in porn. That is really complicated, and it's something that I talk about later in the book. Although I come at it from a more straight porn perspective, just because I have focused primarily in my career on the straight porn industry and the smaller queer porn, which is distinct, both of which are distinct from the gay porn industry. So I don't know as much about the different roles that are played in gay porn. But within straight porn, there's a lot of discrepancy of pay based on a lot of things. Most of them are bullshit. But that's something I don't want to get into right now because it's a huge conversation and there's a whole chapter on it later in the book. So I think with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I have not eaten today. I have to write an article for Playboy that's due tomorrow that I haven't started writing yet. And I have to get back to my Kickstarter, and I also have to proofread a book this week. So I gotta get going. Yeah, John, let me see if I can find... I think that the discussion of pay is sort of spread out over a few different chapters because there's different issues that are involved in the pay. So chapters 14 and 15 primarily talk about the pay discrepancies. And I would love to hear more about the gay porn, like, breakdown of pay, because that's something I actually haven't heard about before. And that's interesting and sounds kind of like bullshit. I will say, and again, I'll talk about this way, way, way more in later chapters, but for cisgender men who perform in porn, there's a lot of moving parts, wink, wink, that make it complicated. Most people do not, I think, really give male porn stars the credit that they deserve for the work that they do. In straight porn, men get paid a lot less than women, which really sucks. But again, we'll get back to all of this in later chapters. So next weekend, I will not be doing one of these readings. I have a meeting on Sunday that I have to get to, and so I'm going to be going back to the every other weekend mode. The past 2 weeks I did in a row just to make up for 1 week that I missed and then, hurried to make up for. So next weekend, the 4th, I will not be doing a reading, but the following Sunday, the 11th, I will be reading Chapter 5, which is called The Backward Slide. And that talks a little bit about my relationship with pornography and how it was changing during this time. But It also talks about something that I wrote down. I know I wrote it down. I don't know where though. Okay, the backward slide. It talks a lot about the women don't like porn stereotype and how I was trying to grapple with that idea when I clearly liked porn a lot. Adult entertainment acting as sex education, which, you know, has its ups and downs, its good side and its bad side, and the problem with trying to police people's fantasies. So that's what I'm going to be doing on November 11th in Chapter 5. In the meantime, between now and then, I am going to be continuing to run a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is fantastic. It is for a great project. You want to help out by sharing it with everyone you know because you are proud to be sex positive and interested in topics that are important for everybody to talk about, right? So I'm going to put a link to the Kickstarter in the notes for the video, and I would really, really appreciate anyone who watches this being able to share that link. Kickstarters are really hard, everybody, so we need all the help we can get to make this thing happen. And the thing that we're making happen is a sex-positive graphic novel that is funny and ridiculous and totally off the wall, but also really important because it is changing the narrative around women who own their sexuality and their bodies and choose what they want to do with them. By showing a character who is not perfect, but who is trying to be an empowered feminist woman and also, you know, live her life the best way that she can. And it's a great story. Also, there's cyborg clone warfare and a talking raccoon. I mean, what's not to love? Seriously. So yes, please check out that Kickstarter. Share the heck out of it if you possibly can. It would mean absolutely the world to me. What else is happening in the meantime? I don't know. Join my newsletter or the Oneshi Press newsletter to find out what's going on with us and, you know, stay tuned. So thank you everybody so much for watching. This has been a great stream. I had some really awesome conversation there afterwards. And just FYI, I'm sorry that I have to go because I love talking about this stuff. It makes me so happy to have real conversations with people about these topics. But like I said, I have way more to do today than I could possibly ever get done, and I still have to do it. So I'm going to leave you all for now, but thank you so much for being here. It's been awesome. I will see you on the 11th.